What's up guys, Pragmatic Pete here, and today we're going to be replacing the Vtec solenoid gasket and the valve cover gasket. I am going to split it up into two videos because if you're searching for Vtec solenoid gasket, you probably don't care about valve cover gasket, and vice versa. Didn't plan on doing this until a little bit later when the house was a little bit better shape. Literally I made that other video yesterday, but noticed an engine knock kind of coming back. Not really a knock, but just some unsettling noises coming from the engine bay. And I want to add the oil, change the oil, fix the gasket so we no longer have a leak. So hopefully we can change the gasket, change the solenoid, and change the oil, put a little bit of marble mystery oil in there, and fix the problem. First, I gotta clean this garage up so I can get the car in here. Now before we get started with these jobs, I am going to be as detailed as I can be, but if I'm a little faster than usual, it's because I'm a tired dude. Just got off of a 10-hour shift at work, and I wasn't expecting to do this tonight. Also, even though it's night, it's really hot in here. So I'm going to open up the doors, or the garage door. Once I open up the door, bring the car in, I'm going to have to create a toad barrier to keep the toads out, because I have an excessive amount of toads outside. Okay, now that the toad barrier is complete, we can get started on the car. It just occurred to me, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I just opened the garage and put a line of boxes barring my garage, so neighbors probably gonna think I'm crazy. Now if you're not sure where the Vtec solenoid is, I will show you. It's in the back of the car, or the engine on the passenger side. It's kind of hard to see, but I will do my very best to provide a good angle for you. These two wires here, let me point. Those two wires right there are part of the sensors, and the Vtec solenoid is right underneath. From what I understand, it is 3 10mm bolts, but I've heard that they are pretty frequently rounded off. So we're going to be using a special wrench for that if we can get it back down there. Also, just a side note, if you can tell, let's see if we can zoom in. There is quite a bit of oil around these plugs, so most likely this is our culprit. So let's go ahead and start taking that apart. Now if you're going to do this job, I do recommend wearing gloves. I'm completely out, or I would have some on. Clearly, you know, the guy who invented the saying, or started the saying, no glove, no love, he was talking about mechanics, because if you get your hands all filthy, nobody's going to love you. So do recommend that, but I don't have them. So let's go ahead and take these clips off. The other one is right there. It was hidden. You son of a gun. Alright, nice and easy. We do have this little plastic clip in the way here. We will try to remove that without breaking it. I'm going to grab a flat-headed screwdriver and pry on that. Push forward on it. If you can't see, well, let me get a better angle for you. Maybe you can just barely make it out, but sorry about that, guys. The camera shut off. It said it was too hot to operate, which is kind of weird because, I mean, really, it's not even that hot out there. Anyways, all I did while I was waiting for the camera to cool off was take the plastic clip off that attaches to the heat shield, which is on the solenoid, and I sprayed some PB blaster on the three 10mm bolts. Unfortunately, they are really down in there and it's hard for me to get a good camera angle, but I will do my best to show you what we're doing. So we have our wrench, socket wrench around one of the 3 bolts that we're going to be taking off. Now these are notorious for stripping, so hopefully we don't have that issue. That's why I sprayed them with PB Blaster. And just to make note, we are using a 6-point socket, not a 12-point socket. And 6-point sockets are supposed to have better grip. Well, more surface area. So let's see if we can get this puppy off. There goes our light. Okay, so let's attempt number 1. Pro tip, banging your socket wrench on everything helps keep you awake. Number 1 is out. Now let's try to find number 2. There it is. Now I did mention using a special tool earlier. I had planned on trying to use a line wrench to get these out, but there's just absolutely no way I'm going to be able to get a line wrench in here. Alright, so here's number 2, and I'm pushing hard towards the bolt and turning. Pushing hard towards the bolt to keep the socket on the bolt. This one might need both hands, boys. Alright, attempt number 2 to get this one out, which is crazy considering it's supposed to be torqued down to about 7.2 foot-pounds if I remember correctly. We have movement, boys. Man, it's greasier than my prom pictures down here. That's number 2. Look at that, we didn't even round it off. Maybe a little. Alright, now for number 3, which is lower. It's kind of in a triangle shape with the bottom of the point of the triangle. I guess there's 3 points in a triangle, that's why it's called a triangle. The long point, long end, is towards the bottom. Once again, I'm going to use 2 hands. Good Lord. Hey. Focus. By the way, I'm literally sitting in the engine if you were curious. Well, let's attempt this again. Whew. Really just using one hand to hold the bolt in place, or to hold the wrench in place, and then pushing with the other hand. We got this one too. And after this, we should be able to remove the solenoid. He's wiggling, he wants to come free. There we have it. That's bolt 3 of 3, so we should be able to remove the solenoid now. Want to be clear, steer clear of these wires. Be careful. And here we have the removed solenoid. Unfortunately, my camera kicked off again because it's too hot, which is very strange. But let's look at what we're replacing. It is this black gasket here. And even on close inspection, I really don't see any damage to it other than maybe that hole right there. I'm not sure if that should be there. I don't think so. Our screen is nice and clean. One thing I do notice is that the gasket is extremely flat, so it's kind of worn out its welcome. And when I removed the gasket, I could see quite a bit of oil underneath. So I do suspect that this is definitely part of the problem. So let's go ahead and remove this old gasket and install the new one. Okay, so the part number for this is 917176, and this is a authentic Dorman gasket. And here's the part that we're going to be using. We're going to be removing the old gasket with an ice pick. If we had a dentist pick or something similar, we'd be using that. So we're just going to very carefully pry this thing out and try not to cause any damage to the body of the solenoid. And I have a feeling it's going to be really in there. Fingernails, maybe? Whoop. We got a little piece that just broke right off. So yeah, this gasket is completely toast. Hopefully it'll come off. Oh, it's just crumbling. It's like I always tell my wife when I need to buy new tools or more tools. An easy job can be made 10 times harder by using the wrong tool. But this gasket's pretty much completely toast, so we will just work at it until we get it out. And there we go, we have our gasket removed. I'm going to scrub the interior of this real quick with just a shop rag, try to get any residual gasket out. And then we'll go ahead and reinstall our new gasket. All right, now we have cleaned out our solenoid gasket pretty well. I did spray it with a little bit of carburetor cleaner as well inside, and should be dried up completely by the time we reinstall it. I don't think it'll hurt anything too much. Just use a small amount, and we are now drying off the residue from that. So we are good to reinstall our gasket. The gasket is pretty straightforward and is impossible to do incorrectly. Well, not impossible, but really unlikely. If you made it this far, you're probably not going to install it backwards. So take our gasket, and you can see it has the screen in there. Screen goes inside of the body, as you would. But before I put that in, I'm going to take a little bit of this nasty grease and just rub it on the gasket. You never want to put a gasket in completely dry. I'd rather put a little bit of grease on here, oil I should say. That way it goes in nice and neat, and it helps it form a seal, believe it or not. So we have our gasket in place. We should just be able to press it in. There you go. We have it all pressed in nice and tight. Well, sort of nice and tight. We'll make sure that it's tight before we reinstall it. Now all we have to do is reinstall this, plug in our clips here and here, and they are different, so you cannot accidentally plug them in incorrectly. And then we'll put the plastic clip back through this hole that held the wiring harness together. I'm not going to show all that on the reinstall. I think y'all have it figured out. Anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. I know this video was kind of rushed and poor quality because the camera covered overheating. It's hot. What can I say? It's hot and it's late and I'm tired, but we got to get this done. So I just figured I'd make a quick video about it and hopefully you guys would enjoy it. And look at all this oil. There's a lot of oil around here. So this was definitely part of the problem.